A hot sun burns down on the mountains of southern Nevada. And that same hot sun bears down on the gambling mecca that is the Las Vegas Strip. And just a few yards off Las Vegas Boulevard is a new race course. Not the Grand Prix circuit that we've known for the past 2 years, but a brand new 5-turn, mile and an eighth distorted oval. It's the scene today for not the Grand Prix road racers, but the drivers of the Indy cars of karts. It's time for the Indy cars to race in Las Vegas for the first time. All rookies, all new track records. We're here in Las Vegas with 26 cars sitting on the main straightaway as they prepare to run the first Caesars Palace 200. Hello, I'm Paul Page with three-time Indianapolis 500 winner Bobby Unser. And the last time the IndyCar drivers raced here as a group was back in 1957. The great Jimmy Bryan won that race. But, Bobby, when they come here today, it's a whole clean sheet of paper.
Well, it is, Paul. We have what I term as a parking lot racetrack, and it's got nothing but a parking lot and cement barriers all over the place and a lot of grandstands, a lot of people. Truthfully, I think it's going to make for a very interesting and good race, and it's more like a road course than anything else, but you always turn left here, not to the right.
It's already created some remarkable circumstances. The front row is made up entirely of rookies. There's a rookie in the second row. Perhaps even more remarkable is in the eighth row is the defending kart champion Rick Mears. And back at the back of the field, added by the promoter's option because they did not qualify, Indianapolis 500 winners Tom Sneva and Johnny Rutherford. So it's going to be an exciting day.
Well, it is, Paul, but remember, I had to stick up for the old-timer just a little bit. There's a few extenuating circumstances. They had some problems with their car. There's the reason they're back there. And I think the main thing to note is that the rookies or the newcomers, whatever you want to call them, they're coming on, and they're coming on strong. They're fast, and there's a bunch of them. I counted 13 a little while ago. And there's a good chance today that we can really have one of our so-called rookies, not a rookie at this place, but a newcomer to championship car racing, win this race.
Of course, every driver here today is a rookie to this race. On the pole, the winner of the Michigan 500, his first time as a pole sitter, John Paul Jr. He awaits the command to start engines with Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, indeed, it was a thrilling victory for John Paul Jr. at Michigan in the month of July. Then last month in August, a tremendous ride that almost took him over the wall at Pocono. He managed to walk away from it, a day he'd just as soon forget. But now it's another month, another day. He's the pole setter here as we get set for 200 miles in Las Vegas. John, it's got to be a tremendous thrill to be leading this field in an inaugural event for Indy cars.
It's very satisfying. Just the fact to be able to run with these guys has been very thrilling, and to be up front fastest, it's quite a thrill.
They're calling this an oval. In essence, it's a road course. Your feelings about this course and how difficult is it to handle?
Well, I really think it is a road course. Anytime you have to downshift, heel and toe, the art of road racing, I really feel it is a road race. The track is very difficult. You can't see around the corners. They're all blind. It's all very flat. There's no banking to it whatsoever. It's very challenging. It's a fun place to drive, but you have to be very precise.
They're ready to put you in the car right now. One final question, John. It's been a great rookie year already. What about next year? Are we going to see you back in Indy cars? Because I know there's some uncertainty.
Well, Count van der Strutten's, we've had a tough year. We've gone through some chassis. He feels that we should be able to get a major sponsor, which we don't have. He's done a tremendous job this year, I think, putting up the money and sticking with me. But next year is up in the air right now. I hope we can get the money to run. If not, they'll have to go with another driver, I guess.
Well, we give you the best wishes not only for today, but for next year as well. John Paul in the front row alongside another rookie, Teo Fabi. The veterans, as Paul mentioned, in the back row. Let's go to Bruce Jenner.
Thank you, Gary. And with me, this year's winner of Indianapolis 500, Tom Sneva. And Tom, here you are, the veteran, but you're all the way in the back of the pack. Come on, big fella, what happened?
Well, we've had some excursions this weekend, and I used to be known as the Gas Man, but after practice, they're calling me the Sand Man. So hopefully we can get rid of that nickname and get back to the Gas Man before the race is over.
Well, you're used to coming from the back of the pack. You've done it many times, and you've driven very well from back here and got up very close. But on this track, it may be tough.
It is. This is going to be a tight pack, and it's going to be tough to pass. So we just hope we've got the car a little closer than we've had it, and we'll see what happens. We've got 200 miles and a lot of braking between now and then.
All right, well, they're yelling for you to get in that car. You better get in it. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
So Tom Sneva, along with 25 other drivers, turns to climb in his car and prepare for the start of the race here in the desert at Las Vegas. And typical of the Las Vegas style, to start the engines here today, comic Joan Rivers.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
The command given to lady and gentlemen to start your engines, recognizing that Desiree Wilson is part of this starting field. There's John Paul Jr. on the pole in his last year Penske PC10. Alongside in a march is Teo Fabi, the winner of 2 races this season. Chip Ganassi replacing Gordon Johncock in the number 20 STP car, and Derek Daly, who drove this circuit as a Formula One driver last year as teammate to K.K. Rosberg. Rick Mears finally putting a win on his list, winning the last race at the Michigan 200. And now the field, all engines are started. John Paul pulls away leading the field, and we'll be back for the start for Grand Prix 3 from Las Vegas. But unlike the past 2 years, on a distorted oval, it's caused a great deal of controversy here. Is it an oval? Is it a road course? The PPG pace cars leading the field around. John Paul Jr. out in front as he serpentines back and forth, trying to scrub some temperature into those tires so they'll be ready to perform when the green flag comes out. Here then is the starting grid for the Las Vegas 200. On the pole, in car number 12, a PC10, is John Paul Jr., winner of the Michigan 500, his first pole position.
And alongside him is number 33, the green and white Teo Fabi, one of the fastest rookies to ever come to Indianapolis car racing, and the winner of the Pocono 500.
The inside of the second row at car number 3, the car Lola, the driver, Mario Andretti, who finally notched a win in kart at Elkhart Lake this year.
And alongside him, car number 90, Derek Daly, certainly one of the finest road racers here today from Formula One cars.
On the inside of the third row, car 21, Pancho Carter. He's been working hard on the road circuits and has been rewarded with a good qualification run here.
And on the outside of the third row, number 66, Pete Halsmer, driving for one of my old bosses, Frank Arciero, came up through the Super Beat.
On the inside of the fourth row, car number 2, Bobby Rahal, the promising rookie from last year, now has added a third win to his kart scorecard.
And on the outside, car number 18, former Can-Am champion, Jeff Brabham, very experienced road racing driver.
On the inside of the fifth row, in car number 7, is Al Unser Sr. He is the man that is leading the PPG points race this season and hopes to keep that lead alive.
And on the outside of my brother is number 20, driving John Cox's car, Chip Ganassi, one of the most promising young oval and road racing drivers.
And here is the rest of the starting field. 26 cars start. 3 of them are powered by production-based engines, the rest by the Cosworth racing engine. And at the back of the field, 2 former Indianapolis 500 winners, Rutherford and Sneva, accounting for 4 Indy 500 wins between them. The rookies on the front row as John Paul brings the field down. The green flag in the hands of the starter, Nick Fernoro, and Teo Fabi starts off in front as John Paul Jr. comes down to the inside. Derek Daly closes up in third. John Paul holds Fabi off on the outside, and the field is safely through the first turn as Kevin Kogan lights his brakes hard. There's John Paul Jr. out in front now. Derek Daly has moved into second. Fabi has dropped back to third.
Well, it's too early to tell what's going to happen, Paul, but it looks like John Paul is handling very good early on in the race, but it also looks like Derek Daly's going to be coming up pretty strong.
John Paul Jr. now hard on the brakes as he comes around that fifth and final turn to complete lap number 1. So lap 1 will be scored with John Paul out in front. Derek Daly moves up from the second row to pick up second place, and Teo Fabi drops back into third. Bobby Rahal is in fourth now. John Paul Jr. on this very tight first turn that does require a great deal of braking. And one of the questions here today, Bobby Unser, is how much the cars will use the brakes.
Well, the brakes are going to get used an awful lot today, Paul. It's a very hard course on the brakes. And one thing, there's not very much fresh air.
We got a problem. Michael Andretti spinning off of the first turn. This is his first IndyCar start. Not a great way to start the day for Michael Andretti.
Well, at least nobody hit him, Paul, so the boy's pretty lucky at this point.
A nice clean spin. The course stays green. He's back in competition at the back of the field. John Paul still leading. Derek Daly still second as Mario Andretti now comes around Bobby Rahal and slides into fourth place. So Andretti moving up.
Mario's working very good. He's been moving up very steadily, but most important is to watch Teo Fabi just slowly going back. Now let's see if Mario gets around Teo.
Mario Andretti closes down behind the Skoal Bandit. Andretti in a Lola, that's a march that Fabi is driving. The Lola has had its problems this year, but not here today as he closes right down behind Teo. They come onto the main stretch again. Let's see if he can get by.
It might be worth noting both these guys are Italians. We're going to have an Italian war, and Mario's going to win it. Look at that.
Mario Andretti right on the inside of Fabi, gets past in the first turn, and now sets his sight on the second-place car of Derek Daly. There's high atop the Fantasy Tower of this 5-turn distorted oval, 1 1/8 mile around, as John Paul Jr. comes around the last turn, the green flag, ending the yellow flag period, and John Paul in the lead, but Mario Andretti able to sneak by and come into second place, and now coming up to challenge John Paul on the inside. Andretti pushes Paul to the outside, but Paul maintains his position. Andretti still in second. The VDS car well out in front now as Andretti drops back a bit. This is the fastest section of the course in the early going for John Paul Jr. Andretti seems to just have to sit back and watch.
Well, Paul, I think most of that is because Mario's probably carrying a little bit more wing than John Paul is, which gives John just a little bit more on the top end. Mario, notice, gets into the turns just a little bit deeper.
Andretti gives it a pitch under heavy braking as he comes through the 5th turn in pursuit of John Paul Jr. That's Daly back in 3rd place. Now Andretti comes on the inside. They're almost together as Andretti forces John Paul to the outside and picks up 1st place.
That's a good example of having more downforce, Paul. You get into the turns a lot further, but you don't go down the straightaways quite as fast.
Andretti, car number 3, almost off the course, is using up every inch of this circuit here. There's his son, Michael Andretti, who is down in the back of the field as a result of that spin in the early going. Mario Andretti in front. John Paul second. Derek Daly is in third. And Teo Fabi is on the pit road. Gary Gerald is waiting in his pits.
Well, Teo Fabi's crew had to run back and push the car in after he stalled coming in through the pits. They've taken the starter to the rear of the car. No indication as of yet as to what the problem may be. Looks like they may have to take the cowling off. This is serious trouble here for a 2-time winner this year. The little Italian Teo Fabi may be out of the running in the early going in Las Vegas.
At the same time that Teo headed in, Johnny Rutherford was in and out for a stop as well. Mario Andretti leads. John Paul Jr. in second. Derek Daly with a fine drive continues in 3rd place.
Well, as you can just see, you got 3 road races right in a row, Paul, so I have to think that we're going to have to call this thing a road race course.
Well, it seems to be so at the moment. In fact, Mario Andretti, we must remember, a former world driving champion on road circuits. Teo Fabi, they now begin to disassemble that barge. Teo stays in the cockpit, but obviously the problem is very serious, and Teo desperately needs the points if he is going to continue in his battle with Al Unser for the PPG World Series.
They're giving up, Paul. They're not going to get him back out. He's getting out of the car.
So as Teo Fabi climbs out, John Paul now closes his pursuit of Mario Andretti. John Paul Jr., the leader in the early going, now closing down just a bit, but Andretti manages to pull away a bit on the main stretch.
And here's a fight for 3rd place. Derek Daly and Jeff Brabham, and they're going at it tooth and toenails, having a good fight.
So the front of the field locked in battle right now. Andretti leads. In 2nd place is John Paul Jr. There you see the interval, 1st to 2nd. And back in 3rd place, Derek Daly fighting with Jeff Brabham. Let's go to the pits now, and Gary Gerald.
Well, here's Teo Fabi, who is out of the car quickly. Teo, what was the problem with the Skoal Bandit? Well, the throttle cable broke. Any warning at all on something like that? It just disappeared. Teo, I know it's early in the race. This really hurts your chances for a national championship. That's got to be very disappointing. Thank you.
A disappointed racing driver and a serious loss of points for Teo Fabi. Disappointment here as well. Johnny Rutherford back in.
And Johnny Rutherford back into the pits. Just 1 lap ago he came in, he changed the tires, got some fuel, went back out just for the 1 lap, came back in. Now they're looking at the car. They're trying to take the hood off the car. They're bringing it up on the jack. So problems for Johnny Rutherford here in the early going here at Caesars Palace.
And Bobby, look at the disappointment on Rutherford's face there. He's really upset.
That's the epitome of disappointment, Paul, believe me.
Johnny Rutherford, the man with a bad season, appears to be out of the competition here in Las Vegas. Out in front, it's still Mario Andretti. He is still being chased by John Paul Jr. as Andretti works his way around the back marker, Dick Simon. And now John Paul Jr. has to contend with Simon. He moves out and around as well. The position of back markers like Simon on a tight, short course like this can become critical for the leaders as they move around. Andretti leads John Paul.
You notice John's pulling right back up again on the long straightaways, Paul.
The leader is still having a car spinning on the pit straight. It's Tom Sneva. Sneva. He gets it under control. There's a flash fire at the turbocharger. That's common. It doesn't create any danger for Sneva. But the rest of the field slows now, an anxious moment, as the rest of the cars had to come off their normal line to the inside of the pit straight to get by Sneva. And Little Al comes in, the Coors Bullet. Here comes Mario Andretti right behind it. So in the pits right now, it's the battle of the beers. Andretti comes into a stop. All of the cars now acknowledging the yellow, and it's a good time for their stop.
The Coors Bullet's out first.
Well, John Paul Jr. stays on the course. He picks up the lead. Andretti coming out of the pits now, lights the tires, pitches it sideways, almost gets into the side of Kevin Kogan.
Well, they came close to having one right there in the pits, Paul. I think that's going to be a pretty lucky thing.
Very close, as Andretti now back into competition under the yellow. Let's look. Here's Kevin Kogan as he was coming into the pits. There's Andretti coming out, and Andretti had to throw the car to keep from hitting him.
I'll bet they didn't miss over 6 inches.
So now under the yellow flag, John Paul Jr. comes into the pits. That will scramble the scoring at the front of the field. Here is Jeff Braverman. He was in 4th place before this stop under the yellow. And the yellow flag is out as Bobby Rahal now picks up the lead under the yellow as a result of the spin by Tom Sneva on the main stretch, but Sneva is back underway. We'll be back. Las Vegas 200, the caution light is still on. Bobby Rahal is our leader. And the report now is that Johnny Rutherford's car is stuck in 3rd gear. Rutherford out of the race. And Bruce Jenner is now down in John's pits. Bruce?
You've had such a disappointing year. You know, words can't explain what the disappointment you've had, but you seem to have your spirits high. You want to stay in there and you want to keep going.
Well, what else am I going to do? You know, I gotta keep plugging away. It's got to get better. It can't get any worse. So I'm just looking for the day that they always say it gets darkest before it gets sunshiny again. So we're working at it.
There's trouble down at the first turn. Desiree Wilson pulled her car off the course. Now they're spraying the fire chemical on her. Apparently a fire in her car, and she's now gesturing to the corner workers.
I think what she's asking for, Paul, is water. You know, the chemical has gotten to her throat, to her eyes. I think she wanted water thrown on her.
So Desiree Wilson now on her knees, and apparently a fire in her car. They were under the yellow at the time. Now they're sending the corner worker over to take a look at the car as well. Here are the cars out of the race to this point. Of course, we talked to Johnny Rutherford a moment ago. Gearbox problem there. Teo Fabi out with an engine problem. And Scotty Brayton had a broken wheel, spun off the course. Desiree Wilson now being loaded into the ambulance for a trip to the hospital. It did not appear that she was seriously burned or injured, but definitely a problem with Desiree's car. Now Bobby Rahal leads Pancho Carter down to the line. In 3rd place is Jose Legarza as the green flag comes out again, and Carter comes out and alongside. See if he can get past Rahal, easily past Rahal and into 1st place. That's Steve Chassie out in front of the field. He is a back marker. Now another car spinning off of the 5th turn. It's Dick Simon as he slides backwards and just off the edge of the course.
Yes, and there's really not too much wrong with it. The smoke you see coming from his engine, there's nothing but the oil and the turbocharger. There's really not too much wrong with the car.
So it looks like Dick Simon will get back. Here's another car off the course. Steve Chassie, who was right in front of the leader. He's off the 1st turn. So 2 cars off. The yellow flag is out here at Las Vegas. And the Morales brothers have to be pleased with their driver, Pancho Carter, who has that Alex Foods March out in front. With the caution light on, let's cross the Pacific now and join Bud Collins in Tokyo, Japan at the Las Vegas 200. Pancho Carter is out in front. Rahal in 2nd. Jose Legarza is in 3rd. 4th place is Mario Andretti. And Roger Mears is up in 5th place. But the young man from Indiana, John Paul Jr., who just twitches the car as he bumps over this course, has forced to thread his way up through the field. He is now challenging at the back of Rick Mears' car. He is forced to thread his way up because of a penalty stop. This is it. Just moments ago, the officials reported he passed the car under the yellow flag, brought him in, stopped him in his pit, and sent him back out.
Well, there's some question in his pit, Paul, whether he did, in fact, pass somebody under the yellow, but regardless, this is going to be very hard on his tires. He's going to have to heat them back or heat him up a lot to catch back up again.
Well, they appear to be working fine right now. He just worked his way past Rick Mears and accelerates down that pit straight again and for the first turn. Now with Dick Simon sitting just in front of him, John Paul still has his work cut out for him. He was the early leader of the race and was the pole sitter. But here is the leader now, Pancho Carter, who is doing just a remarkably fine job today.
And here comes Mario on the inside, passing Jose Legarza, and going to come right in behind Bobby Rahal.
And there's the Red Roof Inns March of Rahal, currently in second place behind this man, the leader, Pancho Carter. And here is John Paul Jr. He continues to throw that car around the race course, just getting around Chris Neifel, and now closing up on the back end of Al Unser Sr. He moves around Big Al and picks up 12th place on the backstretch.
And while that was going on, Mario just did a beautiful pass on Bobby Rahal going into turn 1. He also passed Al Unser Jr. at the same time.
Rahal now has to contend with Little Al as well. They almost touch tires as they get on past. Here's the leader again. A car spinning in front of him. John Paul Jr. all the way on the brakes. Ganassi almost stops as well as Jeff Brabham touches the wall and spins out in the fifth turn. Peter Halsmer moves past. Now Brabham gets the car rolling, but because of his position on the course, he has to go all the way around before he can get back to his pits. The yellow flag is out here once again in Las Vegas.
Man, that's about as close you're going to get to an almost bad wreck as I've ever seen, Paul.
So Jeff Brabham now trying to make his way around, and our leader, Pancho Carter, under the yellow, heads down the pit road. Bobby Rahal comes right in behind him. So first place and third place come in. Mario Andretti stays out, so he now picks up first position. Let's go down to the pits. Here's Gary.
Pancho Carter on the brakes, his crew into action. The car comes up quickly, a huge belch of flame out of the turbocharger. They're changing both rear tires, also the right front. It should be a routine stop. Carter has been running beautifully. He gambled earlier, didn't make a stop. Now he gets the opportunity to come in and make the change. We'll get him right back on course now as he pulls away.
Pancho Carter, as his wife watches as he heads back to the course. Here's Bobby Rahal making his stop. It's routine as well, and serious work being done on Jeff Brabham's car as they literally rip the wing off the back of the machine. That will be a long, long repair, but the crew apparently deciding to send him out. At the same time, Mario Andretti, who stayed out under the yellow, now comes in for his stop. So Mario Andretti, our leader, into the pits. Here's Gary.
Here's Mario Andretti, the veteran driver who would love so much to have a victory here in Las Vegas. He's competed twice in the Formula One. The first time now in an Indy car, and it's a very quick stop for Andretti.
Former driver Dan Gurney drives the pace car, leading Little Al in the field around. And remember, Little Al is actually one lap down. And the standings at the front of this race are now scrambled as a result of the stops under the yellow. We'll be back here in Las Vegas later, but now let's return to Japan. Bud Collins and David Rowe for more page with Bobby Unser, and we're back in Las Vegas for the Las Vegas 200. Our leader, Mario Andretti, and he has a wonderful lead ahead of the battle for second place, which has now developed between Jose Legarza and John Paul Jr. Here comes that fight as John Paul comes to the inside, approaching turn 5, and John Paul moves past Garza, picks up second place.
That was a good pass. That's where most of the cars have been passing all day, Paul. I think we've had more passing there than all the other places total.
Well, John Paul Jr. has had a frantic but a fantastic run as he's worked his way back from that earlier penalty of a black flag stop and go. John Paul Jr. in second place. Here's the fourth place car. Kevin Kogan, as Kogan locks the brakes, tries to get it around the corner. Kogan off the end. Kogan smashed the barrier.
Terrible deal, terrible. He should have turned to the right, Paul. He could have missed those tires so easy. I just don't know why. I guess he had a bad indecision point.
Well, the barrier may be well placed for the course, but poorly placed for Kevin Kogan. Mario. Clouds to the western skies of Las Vegas. We're here for the 200-mile race. Mario Andretti still out in front. There are 2 races remaining in the kart season at Laguna Seca, and then, of course, at Phoenix for the final race of the season. You'll see that on NBC Sports World on November the 5th. The points battle, very close. 6 drivers still with a shot of taking away the championship. At the moment, it's Mario Andretti that is proving very promising here at Las Vegas. He is out in front. In second place, John Paul Jr.
John Paul Jr. is about a straightaway behind. Here he comes right now, and he's definitely picking up ground on Mario, so it should be a better race pretty soon.
The battle at the front should close. In the meantime, Rick Mears is in the pits. Let's go down to Gary.
Paul, Rick Mears has had a continual problem. The car has been locked in third gear. They finally had to remove the rear wing assembly that was rattling loose. They're trying to get him back under power and back on course. Roger Penske and Mears trying to protect their number 3 position in the season-long point standings.
Mears goes back to the battle without the benefit of a rear wing. Tom Sneva in for what should be his last stop as well, but there's some smoke pouring from the cockpit.
But he's definitely got something burning, Paul, but it looks like it's blown itself out. I don't think there's any problem right now.
Routinely, that does happen. Tom Sneva rolls back to the fight. Here's our leader. The number 3, Budweiser Lola of Mario Andretti, out in front of John Paul, but John Paul beginning to close down now. As he streams down the straightaway, the starter gives the blue flag, indicating that there's faster traffic behind as a scorecard.
Steva's on fire again, Paul. That fire didn't blow itself out. It's still going. It looks like it's a very serious fire right now.
Tom Sneva already throwing his straps away. The wheel is detachable and comes out. He throws the steering wheel out of the way.
Oh, he's
furious fire there on the right side.
Big fire. That car's burning. It looks like maybe the oil cooler caught on fire and got back on.
Tom Sneva may be hurt. The fireman goes past Sneva, doesn't even pay any attention to him. He may still have fire on his uniform. You can't see an alcohol fire. And now the fireman is over fighting the fire on the car as Sneva collapses on the wall.
There's one of the cardinal sins of the firemen. They're always supposed to go to the driver first. It's a terrible mistake to make, but it's been done before.
Well, the firemen here are pickup. They're not regular to the season. The truck that just pulled up is the regular CART fire team and medical team. Tom Sneva appears all right. As he gestures over to the fire crew, apparently he sees some more fire on the ground. Something possibly leaking. The yellow flag obviously out. Tom Sneva saves himself from disaster.
Well, it's a sad thing. These firemen, he's obviously all right, but these firemen have got to learn to go to the race drivers first. After all, the life has got to be a heck of a lot more important than the doggone cars. We can see in the slow motion that Tom's undoing his belt, and we can definitely see that the fire is coming from the right side front of the car, where the driver's going to get the most heat and really the most dangerous. Also, it's very close to the fuel cell.
Tom actually had to put his hand down into that burning fire. That shows you how good that Simpson safety equipment really is. Apparently uninjured. Now the regular CART crew is there. Steve Edwards, Dr. Steve Alvey, and David Crippen there to help Tom Sneva. They're a very trusted unit, and the CART people are very happy to have them around. We're still under the yellow here as a result of that fire on Tom Sneva's car. Fortunately, though, Tom Sneva was not injured, but for a moment it looked very serious as he had to climb out of his burning machine. Now he's in the pits with Gary.
Well, Tom Sneva gets out of the safety vehicle, gets back over here now. Tom, you appear to be okay. I understand it got pretty warm.
Yeah, I did. It got real warm. I wasn't sure how much on fire I was, so when I got out, I just rolled on the ground for a while to try to make sure if I was going, we'd get the fire out.
We had one report that you were burning as the car exited the pit.
Yeah, I think it probably started, but I was hoping it would burn itself out or blow itself out by movement. It didn't do that, so I was trying to unbuckle for a half a lap to get ready to get out. I didn't want to stop and then try to unbuckle. I had to get the belts loose before I stopped, because by moving I was running away from the flames. So finally we got the belts off and were able to get out.
One of those extinguishers went right by you to get to the car. That's got to be a little frustrating.
Well, that's not quite right. They better look after the driver first. But I'm fine, and it looks like the race car will be all right, too.
Well, this has been a real thrash of a weekend for you and your crew, hasn't it?
It really has. They worked awful hard, and it just wasn't the Texaco Stars day.
Well, we look forward to seeing you down the road, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Well, this yellow coming so close to the end of the race now sets up John Paul in a position to close on Mario Andretti. The green flag's out. Problems off of the fifth turn on the restart. Peter Halsmer spins, comes around, gets alongside Roger Mears, and it's lucky that we didn't have a tragedy there, but the green flag stays out and we continue racing.
That's one of the closest calls we've seen all day today, Paul. I don't know. There's the car off into the dirt.
Steve Massey comes off the course.
I think he's been there before. This is not the first time.
Oh, having trouble getting restarted, but again, the green flag continues to fly. Mario Andretti is out in front, and John Paul Jr. is right behind him.
Well, we're having a good race now. Look at the dash for first place. This is going to really be a good one.
The yellow really came at the right time for John Paul Jr. Dick Simon pulls off the course, apparently failing on the main stretch, but he's out of the way.
I reckon Mario's glad to see him pull into the pits.
Andretti lights his tires under braking. Can John Paul get past? John Paul takes the inside line, and John Paul Jr. goes into the lead.
Well, it looks like Mario's brakes were probably a little bit cold, and he used them a little too hard that early after the yellow, Paul.
So the lead goes away from Andretti. John Paul Jr. seizes the opportunity much in the same way that he did at the Michigan 500 on the last lap, driving past Rick Mears. So here he is again out in front, but Andretti is determined to close.
Well, I'll guarantee you one thing. This is going to be the contest between an old-timer and a rookie. The pressure is going to be on John Paul like you just can't believe.
John Paul, as he comes back to the first turn again, Andretti closes a little bit more. I'm sure that all he sees in his mirrors is that big number 3 closing and wondering how is he going to keep a former world champion back. Here was the problem with Andretti.
Well, here he is, just great, but he lets off, Steve. Totally the opposite of what Kevin Kogan did. Mario let off his brake at the last minute so it would start turning. Because as long as the wheels are locked up, it just won't turn in any direction.
Unfortunately, he was just a little too far out, and John Paul was able to sneak by. But here's Andretti as he continues his pursuit of John Paul Jr. And John Paul, perhaps on his way to his second kart victory this year.
Well, not yet, Paul. Mario's pulling up on him, and I'm telling you, the pressure's going to get bad. Now, if John is going to make a mistake, John Paul make a mistake, it's going to be because Mario's working up. Look how close he's getting there.
John Paul darts to the inside of Roger Mears. Andretti comes right down behind him. Now Andretti in a position to attack. They come through the backstretch, through the fourth turn. Now John Paul down hard on the brakes. Andretti darts a little bit to the left. Andretti pulls alongside, and Andretti forces his way past John Paul. The lead goes back to Andretti.
That was the best pass we've seen all day long. I don't care what they say about the passes. That was a very calculated risk.
Perfectly clean by Andretti as he forces his way past John Paul. Now the game back to John Paul. Can he pursue Andretti and pull the same move in reverse?
I don't think so, Paul. I really have to go with the experience. Mario has it, and I just think he has more downforce than John Paul does. It's just going to be tough.
So you go for the better handling car, the experienced driver. On the other hand, John Paul Jr., that PC-10, has been working very well for him in the faster section of the course. And we have to remember, when he went up against the experienced Rick Mears in Michigan, he was able to bluff Mears into the wrong place at the wrong time and go on to win the Michigan 500.
But keep in mind, Mario's handling better where you can pass on this track, and that's really going to be what's going to guarantee him the faster car.
Little Al bottoms out just a bit, scrapes some sparks off the back as third place Chip Ganassi goes past. Ganassi having a marvelous ride today. Little Al back in the field, well down. Here comes Peter Halsmer chasing Ganassi, and Halsmer hits the brakes hard and forces Little Al off the course. Al slides to a stop in the sandbox, doesn't get into the barrier. Now in the closing laps, they will not be able to move Al's car away from that position. John Paul continues his pursuit of Mario.
Terrible, unfortunate thing for Little Al. So close to the end of the race to get knocked out like that.
The white flag. Nick Finaro, the starter, shows it to the leader, Mario Andretti, and to John Paul Jr. in second place. A little less than a mile now if John Paul Jr. is to get past Mario Andretti.
I don't think so, Paul. He's losing ground, but by the same token, remember, the mechanical difficulties could happen any time. It happened to me many times, and it could happen to Mario.
Mario Andretti now with slower cars in front of him between he and the checkered flag as Andretti comes alongside Steve Chassis. Chassis doesn't see him, but Andretti gets past. Chassis almost turned into him. Now John Paul Jr. comes off the corner, but Mario Andretti wins the Las Vegas 200. John Paul Jr. comes across the line in second place, and that Budweiser crew begins a celebration as Carl Haas, the owner, begins throwing kisses to everybody. Here's the checkered flag now for Chip Ganassi, finishing in third place. And Al Unser Sr. comes across the line in fourth, adding to his points total in the World Series. But right now, the day belongs to Mario Andretti, winner of the Las Vegas 200 in front of a crowd over 22,000 strong.
And I'll say another thing, that last turn was awfully close and very risky, but I'm glad he got by. He did a nice drive all day.
Mario Andretti heads for the winner's circle here at Las Vegas, and we'll be back to talk and celebrate with Mario. Mario Andretti has just won the Caesars Palace 200. The car owned by Paul Newman and Carl Haas, a Lola, for the second time this season, has proven its worth. It started with a very tough season for Mario, but now it's in winner's circle once again.
Well, Mario, we'll give you a chance to get a sip of a cool drink. There's that familiar grin. The second time this year we've seen it now. This turned out to be a heck of a battle in those last few laps.
I think it was a battle right from the beginning for me. It just seemed like I had the car and I was just I just wasn't getting all the brakes. I had to really work for it, but it's one of those things that just worked right at the end. I had some problem with the brakes grabbing once they cooled off. That's why I was really worried about the yellow, and I knew that John Paul was right on my butt, so I couldn't afford to pussyfoot, and I locked it all up. At the end, I figured, oh, this is it. But, man, I said, I'm going after it now.
How tough was it once you said you got to go after it to come back and get it there again?
I don't even remember. All I saw was red.
How about this race course? They say it's a road course. They say it's an oval. You've conquered it at any rate. Your impression now after your first 200 miles at Caesars in IndyCar?
I said it the first day I got here, and I say it now. It's fantastic. To me, it's one of the best ovals I ever drove on. So I look forward to coming back.
I tell you, the Budweiser crews had quite a day. You win the Trans Am, they win the championship. You come in here and win your second of the year. Now that ought to keep everybody partying for quite some time.
Well, it pleases me to no end, believe me.
Congratulations again from NBC and our entire crew to Mario Andretti here in Victory Lane.
The win worth almost $70,000.